Hey, I'm glad everyone could be here to help us talk about, discuss, and dissect this fun fight we're having between the Undersiders, now with 100% less bitch, and, well, I don't know, someone not important, one of Uber and Lead's sidekicks.
Truly
It's a fun group.
100% less bitchy.
Well, I think we're still nearly as bitchy as before. Tattletale's still here after
Oh,
all.
you're right, you're right.
But as far as straight up bitch goes,
Yeah,
much less than normal.
I would say we have none of it right now. All right,
Honestly, I
so
think this is a distinct downgrade. Bitch is quite the addition.
some would say she's pretty bitchin'.
I
Um,
would say that.
2 plus 4 times 5 is here, so we got our first arrival. Vic and M just showed up. Guessing Vale's going to be here in a couple seconds. It's usually how things roll. Um, I had wanted to do the audience participation reminder. Who was the MVP of this fight?
Ooh.
As the fight is indeed wrapped up when Taylor passes out. Um, then let's see here. Ba, 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 ba. I'm just wondering. Guess we'll just start in on the themes right now. We got, or no, I know what I'm forgetting. I was like, I'm forgetting something, and it was the speed draw. That's what I was forgetting.
Ooh, yes, please.
So that has
Only for
begun.
watching.
Oh, and to remind everybody to set your chats to live chat and not top chat, so that when 2 plus 4 times 5 starts using the spicy language, we can still read it. Um,
Those some good chats.
yes, indeed. Vic says this one's a bit boring to watch. Might be a lot of unconfidence in the artwork for this week, but I like it. We get our beautiful ice explosion.
Mhm. We need this ice to counteract all the spice in chat.
Indeed, indeed. All right. So, M's like, I like it. Me too. Let's see here. Uh, we'll just jump into the themes. I could only come up with the one, which is, well, you know what? I only came up with one that I wrote down, but I just thought of another, so I'll say it before the one I wrote down so I don't forget. There's kind of a theme in this story of like mutilation of your enemies. Like
That's fair. Yeah.
Bakuda attempts to do it to Gru, and Taylor successfully, to a much lesser degree, does it back to her in retaliation. Um,
Well, I was thinking of even before that, lung.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. That's like the first example in the story, and then I think of like this is the next one, and then coming up there are some really obvious examples again in the next
Yes.
couple arcs.
Oh goodness.
Um,
We'll get to those.
And the way I had heard it talked about in, I don't even remember what program. It was another Parahumans thing though, and they were talking about the fact that Taylor has these control issues, and she uses the mutilation as like a permanent way of like retaliating and building her rep to have more control and stuff.
Hmm.
And in this case, it's much more just an in the moment desperation, um, but it is. Oh yeah, let me get to the full quality version. There we go. It is something that she does on purpose a lot. Let's see. Vic
Oh,
says, "What were you gonna say?"
I was gonna say I just read 2 plus 4 times 5's comment. Can't spell lungs crotch without rot. Oh,
Technically
you.
correct. Vic says, "I've always viewed it as a thing that Wildbow likes to write. There's a lot of body horror, and
There really
definitely."
is. It's definitely also very relevant in his other works, Twig and Pact. I haven't finished Pale yet, or gone too far in Pale.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a theme that pops up in all of his works.
Yeah, and Vale just arrived, so that's pretty cool. Um, got the other theme that I could think of that is just the surface level theme of the text, bullying. Um, there's a lot of stuff to be said, I think, about it, but I kind of summed up just a couple thoughts. I don't think it's a bad thing what Taylor does to Bakuda when she's like, you failed at school and you suck. Like, I don't think that's bad because Bakuda sucks and was trying to kill her friends, but it is clearly just Taylor using direct bullying tactics against someone, knowing from Tattletale's info, like, kind of what their mental weak points are. And, I mean,
Yeah, I
mhm,
really think that this is just when you're in a fight for your life. Any tactics on the table. Psychological warfare, totally okay.
mhm. Yeah, but over over the course of the book, we'll kind of see that one of the main things that she builds up in herself is the capacity to cape bully people.
Mhm.
um,
She learns from the best.
Yeah, she's like, I feel like she was naturally good at it as well. Yeah. And then I had said there's also an argument to be made that aside from the full-on blackmail that Bakuda uses in not only these chapters but the previous two as well, she also employs small-scale bullying tactics on people she has power over. To like the way she interacts with her minions seems to be a lot of like breaking them down over time, like even more than them just being scared for their lives. Like grabbing the one guy's hair and like bullying the two children's and then murdering Park, our dear friend Park. You know.
Yeah, I think Vale makes a good point in chat. They say, I think there's a huge difference between bullying a helpless victim and trying every tool possible to win an actual fight. Yeah, there's a big difference punching down and punching up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and 2 + 4 × 5 even sums it up pretty well right there. Bullying a victim versus bullying a bully. Um, and Vale says Taylor learns from everyone. Especially her enemies. I make a joke about that later with a fake Taylor quote from my chapter 4.9. Um, but yeah. Um,
So I do
mhm.
think that there is one more theme that at least should be
Ooh.
touched on. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
write either, which is the theme of escalation.
Ah, yes,
There's a
yes.
really big escalation, especially in 4.10, when Bakuda starts threatening fates worse than death. I mean, I
Yeah.
suppose Panacea did a little bit of that, like dipped her toes into that pool, but it wasn't really serious. Bakuda is very serious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bakuda's like actually gonna do it, and I don't think that Amy was actually going to do any of those things that she said. I don't think that in that moment she had it in her to actually like take major offensive action, even if she felt like her life was in danger.
Yeah, agreed.
Um. So yeah, escalation. I mean, that's one I try and bring up a lot, but I didn't think of it here because in my mind, like I was thinking she was already exploding at them constantly. But you're right that there's like an actual difference in level of force when it's worse than death rather than just attempting to kill someone.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, this whole fight is also just a pretty big step up in terms of the level of violence being done all around. Bakuda
mhm.
has been throwing around some pretty serious firepower, and she has been just wrecking the immediate area. The
Yeah,
place is
and
a mess.
she definitely kills at least Park and maybe some other people on her own side, but then Regent also maybe kills the driver of the Jeep, and it just says he's limp. It does not describe him as alive. um and then there's the guy who either got pulled out of the Jeep by Gru, which would be like not that bad, or like if he got thrown from the vehicle and possibly also crunched by the vehicle. Like if that happened in the darkness, we didn't see it, but it's pretty realistic to think that might have happened.
Hmm.
So yeah, they kind of a lot of people are getting murderized. Um yeah. And then I was going to say that I had another side note here before we start the chapter. I thought it was interesting and kind of weird that despite being an active part of the running and fighting and planning, at no point does anyone directly refer to Taylor, either by her name or by any cape name. They don't call her Bug, they don't call her Skitter. Um, Things are said directly to her where like someone's looking at her, but yeah, I just thought it was weird because you hear Regent, Gru, and Tattletale like said aloud a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. I had to wonder whether or not that was due to the name Skitter being only internal to the PRT at this point, or if it was released and then Taylor just didn't want to necessarily settle on using that name that got pinned on her, or what exactly was happening there.
I
But
thought
you're right, it definitely is interesting that she doesn't get referred to
Mhm.
directly by name in these chapters.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was possible that it was that, like, maybe Wildbow wasn't 100% sure that he wanted to go with Skitter, and maybe he thought she would rename herself in Arc 5 or something, and then settled on it by the time Arc 5 started. But I have no idea. Yeah. Anyway, sounds like we are probably good to move on to 4.9. Um, Let me see here. So, I think I might have muted my headset. Greg, can you talk real quick?
Sure, I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay, good. Just a couple weeks ago, I accidentally muted my headset during a episode, and then Quinn muted himself also last week, so I was like a little paranoid about it. But
Well, it's
um,
never a dull moment.
yeah. Anyway, so starting up 4.9, continues right where we left off last chapter. Taylor is directly asking Regent if he got shot or not because his left arm is hanging limp and she couldn't tell if he was. So she has to ask multiple times for him to even respond. And then, clearly distressed, he's only able to shake his head no at first, and then explains that he wasn't shot, but his power backfired on him. And he tries to move the conversation along, but Taylor asks, "Backfired?" Um, and I mean, I
Taylor is
was,
interested, despite the dire circumstances.
yeah, yeah. Um, I would be so annoyed at Taylor here too, says Vic. Yeah, I think that this surprised me as well because we hadn't had any instance so far of a power like not working or like um I don't know, like not that the powers don't have any downsides, but that like we've never seen something like this happen up to this point in the story.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't seen like Gru if he makes too much darkness, he gets sick or something like that. This is the first instance we see of where a power being used causes negative effects on its user, particularly if they do it too much or use it in an unusual way. So,
Yeah, and Taylor worries about an upper limit on the number of bugs she can use at several points in the story, but we kind of come to find that that just isn't like a thing. She has a range, but she has no bug number limit.
pack him in.
Yeah. Vic says she's always too curious. I was gonna say he's like trying to fight through it, and she's like giving him a pop quiz. Vic, we haven't seen people get pushed or punished for misusing their power. I'm not sure if Tattletale has mentioned it. Yeah, we
I don't
haven't heard
think
of
she
thinker
has.
headaches yet. Which is like a
Yeah,
big thing across a bunch of characters.
yep.
But there's also thinkers. It's kind of across all types that it's like varied because there are thinkers who can endlessly use their power. I'm thinking of like specifically the thinker aspects of Taylor and like Big Picture and some other people like that whose powers just go forever.
Yeah, I guess the difference there is whether it's more or less passive or active, because it seems like the perception-based ones don't tend to have too many problems with headaches.
Yeah,
Or if
yeah.
it's just a thing that you do all the time, continuously, you don't have problems. But if you have to like actively invoke it, then
Mm-hmm.
you end up with headaches.
There are people. I would say that. So there are people who, when their power is activated by external stimuli, then it still drains them. And
Mhm.
Tattletale's in like a middle ground for that, I'd say. Where
Yep,
like she can just be set on a path, even if she's not specifically trying to do her power, if she's in too stimulating of a place. So,
that is true. Yeah.
anyway, back to less tangenty. Regent snaps back his answer, snarls it even, it says in the book, despite his typical cool guy demeanor. And a moment later, he apologizes, but tells her they should focus on getting them out of this mess.
Yeah, interesting to see this because, as the book mentions, we have mostly seen Regent being cool as a cucumber, mostly dismissive, lackadaisical, but a little bit of pain, and he is now on the edge.
Yeah, well, I think he can take a like Gru can throw him into it something like the ground in a sparring match and hurt him and have him not flip out. But like this is real pain.
Yeah.
So, um, Vic, polite king, I wouldn't have apologized. Yep, Regent has once again bowed over, dropped his crown, and we need to pick it up for him. Uh, Tattletale. I was still holding her hand, so I squeezed it to ensure I had her attention. This would be a fantastic time to do your thing. I like that they're still holding hands because Tattletale grabbed her hand while they were being threatened by Bakuda, and then they pull each other along at various times throughout this.
Yeah, it's cute.
And Groot cuts in angrily to chastise Tattletale for letting them walk into this fucked up situation, as it says in his line. Uh, Tattletale starts dropping some science on their asses about Bakuda. The big one. She's lying. About? She's not the new leader of the ABB. Oh my god.
Yeah, Tattletale's really having problems predicting when they're about to walk into a bad situation.
Yeah, yeah, she kind of messes up big several times in the early story. Um, well, all the time, but
Oof.
she's still awesome. She rules. Gru wants to know more, but Tattletale is only sure that she's pretending to be the leader. Their back and forth is cut short as a bunch of debris flies out of the darkness from another explosion. Then Bakuda blind fires a rocket out of the darkness and it hits the bomb under the hologram at the end of the alley. Um, it's like another one of those projectors that's set up under uh, fake holographic ABB members that were supposed to lure in the Undersiders.
Yeah, she's
Um,
really gone to a lot of effort to set up the battlefield.
yeah, I mean that's one of the things that like they mention in the previous chapter in 4.8. Tattletale's like, um, she's like they only had like half an hour tops to get all this together. How did she manage it? And I mean, I'm guessing she like had people set them onto the locations and then she remote activated them and stuff. But she had a lot of manpower, like 40
Mm.
people or whatever.
You know, I have to wonder. Hologram projectors don't really seem in Bakuda's wheelhouse. I have to wonder if they're Elite's tech.
I think they are because his bombs were solid holograms. So I
Ah,
think
yeah.
that he was doing like one big hologram project here, and he managed to get it all to work. Um, Also, maybe
That's
that's why
teamwork.
the holographic bombs like sucked even more than usual is because he had already made these other holograms, so it was too close thematically. Because his power is like, I hate you.
Just
um,
wasting his sweet hologram tech on this nonsense.
yeah, man, he really is just someone who wastes every opportunity, always. Um, Elite. So yeah, here, when the bomb she fires goes under the hologram bomb, we get the combo. The first bomb's explosion isn't that bad, but that's because the second bomb is an ice bomb. Smoke, debris, and dust had been frozen into a tower of ice. The tower begins to collapse almost instantly under its own weight because it's like, not stably built, just flash frozen. Um,
Yeah, Bakuda's lots of fun this fight because there's all these crazy effects going off. We saw like a black hole, a crazy time stop effect, towers of ice and fire all over the place. Very cinematic, very cool.
I also like that it shows us, because we don't really know a lot about Tinkers, even though at this point we've seen like three of them. We don't know that much about how varied their technology can be, and like she, I should have made a note in the powers knowledge section. She mentions scanning, which is like uh, a big important thing for Tinkers to scan other capes and like basically get info on their powers and
Yeah, I made a note in there.
oh, good. Cool. Well, yeah. So they don't talk about it that much in Worm, but in War they talk about scanning a lot.
Sure, I just think it's notable that Bakuda is significantly above, I think, in terms of how quickly she's been able to get set up, how varied her effects are. Like she's rocking a pretty big swath of effects here.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it just sort of also sparks your imagination of all the cool things she could do with a little bit more effort. Like I mentioned in the listen party, like it'd be cool if you'd scan Miss Militia and you get bombs that shoot guns that shoot bombs.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna say I think that part of why she's able to get so much done is because it seems like she really leans into like the power and the mindset of the power specifically. So she's probably being provided with like tons and tons of like mental insight by her power because it's like rewarding her for doing all this conflict stuff and doing all the like really bonkers stuff that she does, and she's constantly
All the
stirring up
mad
hornets
science.
nests, and she's like
Yeah,
gathering tons of she's like a perfect host for a power. um
sure.
yeah, so probably getting a lot of good feedback. So our good friends, the Undersiders, are also covered in a thin layer of frost and icicles on the side of them facing the explosion. It says even twists and curls of Gru's darkness had been frozen by the blast, which I found interesting because it's like it's not clear what all the darkness interacts with. Even when I've full read the book, like some wind powers are able to dissipate it. Some um like rain doesn't knock it out of the air. Like this kind of freezes it, but it doesn't seem like it'd be normally freezable. Um,
Yeah, I think it's just weird power interaction.
yeah. Vic says, "Oh, I hate the scene where he defends himself for touching Tattletale." Um, yeah. I don't think it's that bad. Gru had put himself between the explosion and Tattletale to block for her since her costume leaves the most skin exposed. And then he's like, "That's why I jumped in front of her specifically and not in anyone else." I thought it was just like him saying why he picked to defend one teammate over others, and it's because of like no armor. Um, but Vic's interpretation is also funny, where he's like, "No, I wasn't like grabbing Tattletale." I don't think
No,
that's what it was
guys, you
though.
don't understand.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. I think Gru is very tactically minded, and he saw that Tattletale would be at risk and puts himself in a position to defend her.
Does Victoria think they are in love? Unclear. Um, let's see here. The group bolts. Vale says he clearly says he only defends female teammates with skin showing. What? Yes, Vale.
Which
Perfect
that's just a line in
interpretation.
sentence with the viewers. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. The group bolts off again as tiny ice crystals or tiny crystals of ice and snow, sort of rain down around them. Um, oh my God, this explosion would be a perfect opportunity to get close. Oh my God, uh, and then Vic's like, I think it's more like Brian is sensitive to Taylor maybe feeling neglected here, like he doesn't care about her well-being. That's exactly how I interpret it. And it is awkward, but I think that given that they've only existed as a group for a week and that he feels like she is someone easily driven away, which she is, that this is a good move. And I think it actually probably does comfort her a little bit. Just generally knowing that he's thinking about her at all. Like her reaction or whatever.
But yeah, awk.
Whatever. I never thought it was awkward until you guys told me it was awkward. I just thought it was like fine. But after all that nonsense, Tattletale moves on to the next bit of info as though nothing had just exploded at them. She's able to know what Bakuda is lying about, or that Bakuda is lying about how she controls the bombs, which seems like pertinent information. She uses the goggles to pick her targets and crosses her toe ring toes to explode the bombs when the toe ring activators have contacts touch. And it's a pretty silly way to murder someone, to be honest.
Yeah, it is a bit silly. It feels like bone something into her gloves or even some other eye movement in her goggles would be more practical. But hey, you do
Plus,
you, girl.
if
You
it
want
was in
toe
the
rings?
gloves,
Do it.
she could be doing Spider-Man poses. I mean, Spider-Man exists in this universe because those comics were written in the Silver Age, so it's before the time split in the 80s. So, yeah. Totally Peter Parker this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Vic says, super pertinent, then Gru is like, something we can use. M says, I didn't
That's
like...
true. Gru doesn't give this very much weight, but it is very important.
It seems like one of the core things to me.
How is she using her bombs? Well, that's not important, says Gru.
Like, I don't know.
guess
It's
he's looking for
just...
something that's more like immediately actionable, but
I think
come
that...
on.
I
There's only
think
so
that
much you
his
can ask of
darkness
Tattletale.
could potentially stop her like power from activating a bomb, like to the degree that it's
Oh,
worth doing, because it blocks
yeah.
radio signals and stuff.
Well, even more than that, like if she's targeting using her goggles,
Mm-hmm.
if you can block sight, you can potentially block the bomb from going off.
Yeah. M says, I didn't like how much I had to think about feet these chapters. Oh man. Vic says, I think it's a good example of his and Taylor's different tactical thinking. To Taylor, this was all relevant, but he couldn't see that. Vale says, she's a relatively new triggered villain, right? This is probably just something she hadn't really worked on much yet. Like, she loves making bombs, and this was quick and easy. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, she spent all of her effort making bombs. She has a targeting system that works. Hasn't put too much more effort into it. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were pointing out earlier, Greg, like, she has this ridiculously varied arsenal already, where she's, like, built out in so many directions, so.
Yeah, and I mean, we even see like she calls one of her bombs like 226 or 227 or something like that.
I think
If she has
618
had
is
like
one of the numbers, too.
618, geez, yeah, okay.
So.
Like, if it's just numerically increasing numbers, geez, come on.
Yeah. I don't know if she was doing like the old hide how many tanks you have strategy where you randomize the serial numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
let's see here. I would believe that she just counted up though, to be honest. Let's see here. Taylor can hear the disbelief in Gru's voice despite the darkness warping how he sounds when she brings up the toe rings. She's like, toe rings? And then Tattletale mentions that this was probably to sell the appearance that she doesn't need to take any physical action, and that it would probably be scarier to think she can blow you up with a thought, rather than the real explanation, which is, quite silly. And then...
Yeah, I mean, if she could, then that would mean that even if you tie her up, take all of her stuff away, she could still make you explode. So I can see the benefit of selling that illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it feels like the kind of thing that would fall apart the moment like any other tinker or thinker gets involved.
Right. But I mean, the thing is, if she's doing it to work on her own people, they don't exactly have an outside source of tinker or thinker information, probably.
That's true.
Let's see here. So Vic says, I feel like the silliness is part of Bakuda's character. Like the costume and the fact that her toenails are painted. She's just she's just in a silly, goofy mood.
Just a silly, goofy psychopath.
Vale says, every bomb has the toe trigger interface. Updating that would be so much work.
Yeah, that's true. Pushing that update to all those bombs, what a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. And, well, Gru is happy to know a little bit more about how she's controlling her attack. He wants something more tangible. What are her weaknesses? And another bomb, like totally random bomb, goes off in the background that the group doesn't even pay much attention to because it's like far enough away. So, Bakuda's just like wildfiring.
Yeah, what are her weaknesses? Give her a B. Just walk up to her, give her a report card.
Exactly.
3.0, not acceptable.
Yeah. So I pulled a rather long section of text that's just a tattletale paragraph. Narcissistic personality disorder. Megalomania. She spent her whole life being smarter than everyone around her, even before she had powers. Constantly praised, coddled, but rarely, if ever, heard a criticism. Probably wasn't ever knocked down a peg. And that was a big factor in her ego, swelling up to neurotic levels. Probably graduated high school years early. My bet is her trigger event was related to this. Passed over for a job, or someone really bitched her out, and she didn't know how to deal. Yeah, I tried to cut that down, but when a tattletale spilling the tea, sometimes it's hard to summarize. She just puts it so well.
Yeah, it all is very illuminating on Bakuda's character.
Yeah. I just feel like rewording it would make it less accurate as well because it's so specific. So, Taylor ties it back to her knowledge of Bakuda's bombing campaign at Cornell, and Gru keeps things on track, trying to get something they can use to win this fight. Which, of course, Taylor does use this info to win this fight, but it's like Vic said, he just has a different way that he views these things, so he's not seeing that they can cast mental break on her from Final Fantasy X. The personality disorder, Tattletale said. Even a small victory on our end is going to get a big reaction from her. Ego-wise, she's got a glass jaw. Hard to say if a win for us would mean she goes manic and blows everything up, or if she'd just crumple, but I guarantee she wouldn't handle it well.
That is accurate, although unfortunately she goes for more of A than B.
Indeed. Although it's kind of I don't know, she does kind of crumple because she sets off her bombs over the city for Oni Lee, and I got the impression that was at the start of this fight, so that happens like already before these events by like a minute or whatever. And then I don't know, like the fact that they get away from her in the end, it feels like she really must kind of crumple because I don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, as far as the bombs in the city, I think that, yeah, those definitely had to go off at least during the fight, if not sometime like immediately before, because this has been like a big splashy fight. Explosions all over the place. I was a bit surprised thinking back on it until I realized the bombing campaign in general was also going on. That police or PRT or Protectorate didn't show up at some point just because of how protracted the fight is and how visible the fight is.
Yeah, it's I imagine that like Velocity or Dauntless or even Assault could like run out here, but they were probably running to a bombing site that happened like in the city proper. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is just some storage containers. Who cares about those?
Exactly. Nobody cares about those. It's not like we left another one of those time stop bombs here. No big deal. Let's see here. Gru stumbles into Taylor to remind us that he hurt his leg kicking open the storage locker, so we're kind of primed for that. When the black hole bomb was going off 2 chapters ago, and he had to get himself and Tattletale into the storage locker. But he keeps pushing the conversation forward to get as much information as they can while they can still, while they have time to talk. Tattletale says she's using heat vision goggles to find them, and the ice might give them cover for a bit, but they can't use her power. They can't use her weapons that she's made because they're electronically locked to Bakuda's fingerprints.
Yeah, and of course, a fun thought that I'm certain we'll see in a bit is, giving non-Bakuda people Bakuda bombs.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I just thought of? Is that this means that she's wearing fingerless gloves, and that's hilarious. Bomberman, but with fingerless gloves.
In the chat, we got Vale saying Bakuda's bombs are so fun. To which 2 plus 4 times 5 replied, "Yeah, they're a blast."
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um. So, I'm really trying, but I can't help but mention Andy Samberg saying everyone was wearing fingerless gloves. Um.
Yeah, we got some boom box action.
Exactly.
Boom box.
Oh my God, that's why she did it for the pun. Tattletale says they better come up with a plan quick because Bakuda's back on the Jeep. This is when Gru says that he's going to split the party, which we all know is a bad idea. You never split the party. He says aloud what they could all tell. I fucked up my ankle by kicking in the door when the black hole hit. I fucked it up worse by running so much afterward. I'm going to see what I can do, staying here. What the fuck? I breathed. No.
Gru trying on the hero routine right there. I'll stay behind. Hold them off.
Vale nailed it with this joke. Fingerless gloves, foreshadowing toeless boots.
Ha ha!
Awesome. Oh my god. Gru and Tattletale are on the same page when he sends them to run. Taylor tries to stay, but Tattletale keeps hold of her hand and drags her down the alley. Taylor shouts back to Gru not to do this, and he slowly walks away from them, sending darkness at the nearby lights on the sides of the storage lockers, because it's been kind of indicated, but like been getting darker and darker throughout the fight because it started like at sunset, and then it's like nearly dark by the time it's over.
Yeah, this is probably crazy intense because just being in a high stress situation like this, adrenaline pumping, you're gonna collapse afterwards, even if you don't get hit by a bomb.
Right, yeah. Um, and so given that it's darker and he's darkened the lights, uh, it's he's pretty obscured, and the then Bakuda fires a rocket at the tower of ice that was created by the explosion, or by the explosion and ice explosion thing, and then the quote here is the entire thing toppled like a massive house of cards with a sound of 100,000 windows breaking. It's pretty cool. The Jeep,
Foreshadowing for a different character. I mean, what?
yeah, so much foreshadowing. Everything is shadows. The Jeep comes bursting forth out of the cloud of icy debris from the tower collapse, and Gru stands his ground against the oncoming vehicle and yells another great audiobook line, "Come on!" I mean, I can't do it like Rain and the warped voice, but it sounds pretty cool. Taylor's flipping out at this point. She hasn't been able to bring a swarm together to the fight because of how much they've been running and the lack of good bugs in the storage locker area. How could I have been so goddamn stupid? I should always be prepared. Taylor will pretty much take this to heart. I think there are a few other times when she runs out of bugs in an area due to prolonged fighting and stuff, but she pretty much always brings a pile of bugs with her from now on. She's just like, there better be at least one giant pile of bugs anywhere where I go.
Yeah, I think we see going forward that she definitely does make an effort to sort of move bugs along with her as she goes about her day so that a swarm will always be available.
She kind of, I'm paraphrasing something she says later, but essentially she's like, I never want to lose the same fight twice. She, when they lose or when they have a really bad moment in a fight, she always remembers it later, and she always keeps it in the back of her mind to counter something. And because of her brain, she can keep 1 bazillion things in her mind. So there's 3 people in the Jeep. We got Bakuto riding the back, holding onto the frame like a total badass. We got the driver, one hand on the wheel and one hand like with a gun. I just imagine he's like, whoa, like just pointed everywhere. And then the passenger, totally guns akimbo. He's dual wielding pistols, almost certainly not wearing a seatbelt. He's having the time of his life.
Absolutely.
The Jeep speeds up, heading straight for Gru, and not in the mood to come up with more dialogue. Gru repeats his earlier shout, "Come on!" And Tattletale keeps pulling Taylor the other direction, telling her not to stay and watch, or they'll have wasted the time that he bought them. But even knowing it's not a good idea, Taylor resists her and grabs onto a locker to stay long enough to see what happens to Gru. This is where I throw in my fake Taylor quote. "I need to see the powers happen to steal their abilities." Taylor, probably.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure she said that off screen at least once. We get some emotional whiplash real quick while the passenger seat gets regular whiplash. First we think that Gru's been taken out. Then Taylor realizes that the Jeep is undamaged and thus can't have hit a person. Tattletale urges Taylor to move on. But then Taylor points out what she saw, and Tattletale realizes she's right. Gru's darkness clouds the Jeep and its occupant suddenly. It's just like from the corner where Gru had ducked into. All sneaky-like.
Yeah, sweet technique.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sidestep technique that we learn, or that we see Taylor be like, I don't remember learning that, way later on when she sees camera footage of herself. It's the absolute last minute sidestep. The Jeep is all over the place when it comes out of the darkness. They both couldn't see where they were driving and were driving on icy ground, so they're just fishtailing everywhere. And Guns Akimbo isn't in the passenger seat anymore. There's always a possibility that Gru pulled him out of his seat or something, but I think it's much more likely that he just wasn't wearing a seatbelt, got thrown from the Jeep when they took off suddenly while he was in a cloud of darkness that specifically throws off your balance.
Look, he was having a great time for a minute or two there, and now he's not.
Yeah. Bakuda aims back at the darkness, and Regent picks this moment to make his move. Fuck! Gru owes me one for this. He uses his already overtaxed powers to make the driver totally spin the vehicle out and crash. Bakuda and a bunch of her supplies get thrown out of the Jeep onto the ground, and the Jeep itself crashes halfway into a locker with the driver clearly incapacitated, possibly dead. Let's see here. M says, that motherfucker dead. And could be referring to the passenger or the driver.
I think that was to
the passenger. Yeah.
But, both. Why not both?
Yeah. Regent passes out from the exertion. Our true champion of dignity and grace. He's saved his friends at the cost of himself. And then Taylor grabs him and eases him to the ground as she realizes that he's passing out. She asks Tattletale if this was another backfire, and she says, essentially, it's close enough. After a backfire, he's got to rest his powers. It's like throwing a punch with a broken hand. He'll be sore and probably powerless for a little while, but he'll recover.
I just know that Regent, of course, would make this as dramatic as possible. He reaches out with his hand, does this swish to knock the driver over, and then dramatically faints.
Well, definitely. But he also, I guess I'll read, the way he does it, it says, he let go of his shoulder, raised his hand toward the Jeep, and then flung it out to one side. As he did, he screamed, his voice primal, raw.
That's our boy.
Use your other hand, Regent. So dumb. That was the problem. Do you think he held the back of his hand to his forehead while he fainted? Yes. He's like, ugh, you guys are so stupid. Reminds me of the Jenny Nicholson criticism where she's saying how they could improve the Lois Lane character by having her constantly go, ugh, this is so stupid.
Uh,
Bakuda's just laying there now after all the people have skidded out and fallen onto the ground and such. Gru walks out of the darkness and into frame with the passenger's gun. Oh my god. Taylor runs to him and hugs him in relief. He says, I'm alright, only a faint. Hard to tell whether it's me or a blob of shadow shaped roughly like a person when the lights are out, yeah? Fooled her. It fooled Taylor too, and she says as much, and they have a cute little moment together. But then... Yeah. Aww. Gru says they should restrain Bakuda, but before they can turn around, Taylor gets hit with a bomb that sets off all her pain receptors. Everything went white. Then every inch of me bloomed in a searing agony that dwarfed the worst pain I had ever felt. She thinks back over the fight and how they've been in like a perpetual series of close calls since they beat Uber and Leet. And in the quick recap, she talks about a few of the near misses they had. Nearly being frozen in time like bugs in amber. Like a bug?
oh!
Yeah. And that's where we get to essentially the end of the chapter. All it had taken was one good shot.
Yeah, I guess that when you're facing off against the crazy tinker with a bunch of bombs, the top priority should be making certain that she's actually down and out.
Yeah.
But, I can understand them in the moment feeling very relieved and overlooking the fact that they hadn't actually won yet.
Yeah. Also, Vale points something out that I wasn't sure if I was going to bring up, but because it's already in the chat, I'm going to bring it up. The pain bomb permanently levels up Skitter. That's true. She just, feels all pain to a lesser degree at this point because she has felt such a high degree of pain over her whole body. No, Vale, it's cool. I was, considering one way or the other if I should mention it, and,
yeah, I think it's interesting to just bring up and mention that, if you go through something that just so taxes all of your brain like that, sometimes you can sort of burn it out a bit. And I think that definitely happens to Taylor. But we'll see that later in the story. So I imagine we'll talk about it more then.
Probably, yeah. So do you have any final chapter thoughts on 4.9 before we sort of move on? It's one of the most, action-heavy chapters I can think of.
Yeah, it really is. It's just nonstop folks running around and bombs going off.
Yeah. At this point in the story, I think it's, even more so than, the bank fight, the most action-y chapter that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
No, I think we should just roll forward into 4.10. So, Taylor wakes up. Bakuda's really done a number on her. She regrets even trying to open her eyes, and when she closes them again, even the faint light through her eyelids causes her intense pain. Everything hurts, and it hurts a lot.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
And speaking of Bakuda, she's still busy ranting. If you little fucks had any sense...
Oh, I thought you were going to Sam it up.
Oh gosh, I could.
I think it'd be worth grabbing. And again, we still have down here every Bakuda line. I did us a service chat. I extracted every single Bakuda line while she's wearing the mask from the whole book so that we could hear any of her lines as Microsoft Sam.
Okay, this will take me just a tiny second.
Oh yeah, I'll just talk about it for a second. We listened to this while we were writing some of our chapter outline, and it's pretty good. It's some choice stuff. Bakuda would have been so much more fun talking through autotune. Yeah, much less scary, but much more much more T-Pain. Laugher. Now that's dedication. Yeah. Let's see here.
If you little fucks had any sense, you'd know that getting the upper hand in me, just for a moment, it is something you should be fucking terrified of.
Yeah. A good old Microsoft Sam.
Classic. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyhow, to be fair, she does have a point. Not about gaining the upper hand, but that the Understars took that time to be relieved and hug each other and all stuff like that when, there's this incredibly dangerous parahuman that they haven't ensured is down and out, is right behind them. So they really kind of got what you would expect in that situation, which is they get clobbered.
Yeah. A lot of parahumans, there's like not really a way to disarm them. Like it's true of like people who fire lasers from their hands. It's true of, like all sorts of types, but like you just can't let a downed enemy be down unless they're like, I don't know, clock blocker stuck himself to the ground levels of
Yeah, that's true. There's a certain level of like if she really could activate her bombs via mines, then even sticking her to the ground, tying her up, whatever else, wouldn't help. But it feels like they should have done something, at least like had eyes on her.
Yeah, probs. And to address the chat, 2 plus 4 times 5 said, perfect Bakuda voice, exactly how I imagined her sounding. And M said, if that's how she sounded, I would be not threatened at all. Bill says, chock full of bugs. Now they're down safely. Yeah, need bugs. Definitely.
Yep. But at this point, the circumstances are dire indeed, and Taylor is seized by the desire to do something, anything. The quote is, my desire to do something was almost more excruciating than the pain that throbbed and thrummed through my entire body.
Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor is really motivated to do something, but she's not in a great circumstance to actually effectuate much. Her thoughts are so disjointed she can barely hold on to them through the pain, and her mind just goes all over the place, trying to connect ideas into a coherent plan. Like she ends up rambling and saying things like school. Trouble at school? Me? The trio? No. Why was I thinking about school? Um
Yeah. Why was I thinking about school? Ugh, gross.
yeah, just thinking about bullies all the time.
Can't get my mind off
Bakuda
of that.
notices then that
Mhm.
Taylor's awake and comes over to chat. She tells Taylor that she has a moles at the Protectorate headquarters who pointed her at the Undersiders, and more specifically at Taylor for directly leading to her capture. Sadly, we don't get to know whether or not she was told what happened to Lung's bits.
We got to assume the mole knows, and she
The mole
knows.
knows, but it feels like there are things that you can say to Bakuda that will cause her to like get really angry for no reason.
True.
So you might treat her with kid gloves.
Yeah, probably. Um, Although the thing is, I think that she would find it funny,
Probably.
personally, based on
This
her
feels like the
other
sort of thing that she might do. She might get an idea from this. She's like, ah, yes,
a
a
bug
bomb
bomb.
that causes their crotch to rot off.
Yeah,
That's right up my alley.
that's like my main thing. Um,
Anyhow, Bakuda has instead of what the Undersiders did, actually taken efforts to secure the folks that she's knocked down and glued the Undersiders to the floor. And she's going to do all sorts of mad science torture to them.
yeah.
I'm not gonna do a stand for everything just because I have to switch the stereo mix away from the microphone so it doesn't
Oh, gotcha.
work. Anyways, once your friends are as good as dead, I give you to Oni Lee. He was a very good boy when it came to the change of regime, and he's been bugging me to give him something to play with. Ugh, something to play with. That sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, he does love to torture murder people.
Yeah, I guess we don't know that much about him at this point, but he is not a good dude.
Yeah. And Vale says that it would be an S-class threat instantly if Bakuda made the crotch rot bomb.
Yeah, imagine that going off over your city.
Yeah.
Big oof.
Yeah.
Anyways, Taylor manages to keep the ideas of Bakuda, school, fight back in her mind long enough to mumble out, "School. Bakuda failed. Smart as you think you are? Failing like that? What was it? Second place? Not even second?" I managed something approximating a chuckle. And to which, yes, thank you. To which Bakuda reacts as if she's been burned. Because she has been. Oh!
Oh man, she got wrecked.
Yep.
I think. I can't tell how important it actually was for Taylor. Like, it's good that she's throwing everything at the wall, but it felt like Taylor doing that didn't actually, unless it like set Bakuda on edge for later, it wasn't the clincher or anything. It didn't really make a difference.
I don't think Taylor had a really coherent plan in her mind for how this would connect to any sort of actions, but I think it did help in the sense that I think Bakuda at that point is like, I'm not going to be listening to this bug girl. Like she at this point basically turns her attention fully to Gru.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, so she kind of starts dismissing Taylor. Yeah.
All yep. Right. Well, Gru chimes in and says something, but Taylor can hardly make it out. The explosion messed with her hearing. As got mentioned in the listen party, yeah, Taylor can understand Bakuda better. There's actually a quote about it from the chapter, which is, Bakuda's words were easier to make out, since her mask was reconstructing them so that they were perfectly enunciated and monotone, even if it obscured it behind whines and hisses. And yeah, the audiobook is not the best of this. It's definitely not very monotone, and it's really hard to understand, honestly. But, Microsoft Sam definitely is less threatening, as noticed.
Yes. I think it's like, like one of those killer robots from a movie who talks in a really, the ones we've all seen sci-fi.
Yes, of course.
And not it'd be like a Cyberman voice maybe from like a Doctor Who. Yeah, where they're just like, I am in no mood to joke. I am a Cyberman. Yeah, anyway.
Inevitable and fucking hilarious.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Anyhow, Bakuda's had just about enough of this nonsense and gets down to business, stopping only briefly to give Taylor a swift kick to the jaw before she reveals she has a gift for Gru. Guess what it is? It's a bomb! Hooray!
What a good gift.
Yeah, I know. She's so generous. I pulled a quote here that says, and in it goes, slowly. Don't want to activate it prematurely, and the effects will only be really cool if it's deep. See, my 227 was something of a happy accident. I'd taken readings of Little Vista's powers. Thought maybe I could make a space distortion grenade. Purely by accident, I cracked the Manton effect. Or at least whatever I'd done when I put the grenade together, it bypassed the Manton effect. And I think we'll probably talk about the Manton effect down in the powers and world building section. But just wanted to pull that bit out right there. The point being that when this delightful present goes off, Gru's flesh will get all crazily warped. And, because she's so generous, it comes with only mild to moderate brain damage.
You gotta have some caveats.
Yeah.
The caveat in this case is that, some minor to moderate.
You can't really properly enjoy the torture without, if you had severe brain damage. You gotta only have the mild stuff.
Yeah, it's generous, some would say.
Yeah. People don't give Bakuda enough credit.
Yeah.
Taylor has a little bit of a panic here and goes for whatever tools she can reach. Her thoughts are too scattered to use her power to do anything complex. She has pepper spray, but Bakuda's got a gas mask and goggles. Pen and paper, cell phone, change, no, and no. Baton, she's not got enough strength to really be effective. EpiPens, no. Knife, though. Knife worked.
She's gonna get connived.
Yeah, Taylor is reaching for a more lethal weapon. Good on her.
But
Bakuda.
she does
Sorry, go
remember
ahead.
she can't kill Bakuda because otherwise all the bombs will explode.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's the thing about dealing with tinkers who can have these like big effects they can set up beforehand. Is that dead man switches become a real concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyhow, Bakuda finishes putting her bomb up Gru's nose and notices that Taylor is flopping around.
Like a
She
fish.
is nearly passing out, but is still able to remember the toe rings. She brings down the knife.
Nails it. Yeah, she gets her.
Yeah, she really manages to pull this one out despite being so completely out of it. And in fact, it takes so much effort out of her that she barely registers Gru saying something urgent and Bakuda screaming. The woman was rolling on the ground next to me. As she kicked her leg, a spatter of blood marred the one lens of my mask that I could see through. What was the woman's name again? Bakuda. Yeah, she's so out of it she can't even remember. Like, oh, right, I was fighting Bakuda.
That person.
Oh yeah, the knife for Bakuda. Bakuda's knife.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
nails it. Nail this lady's foot to the floor. Quite right, M. Laffer.
Nice.
Taylor finally understands what Gru is saying. He needs the knife. With the last of her energy, she pulls the knife free from the ground and reaches it out to Gru. And then she passes out.
My word. What a dramatique chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you mentioned, this is the end of the fight because our POV character is Taylor, so we don't get to see any of the wrap up. But we have to assume that Gru managed to get himself and everyone else out and away from Bakuda, who is busy being tremendously unhappy about her foot situation.
Yeah. Yeah, she's all like, my foot, my toes. But the reason I think that she might have crumpled is because, like, she doesn't run three-legged, like hand foot with her good foot to the bombs and rocket launch a bomb at them. I know she doesn't have the toe
Mm-hmm.
rings anymore, but it seems like a lot of these are contact operated.
Yeah, a lot of the like grenade launcher ones.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, that's why it felt like that. Uh, the loss that she had was the glass jaw kind of thing, like Tattletale had mentioned.
Yeah, or maybe it really is that the toe rings are just that important to her control scheme.
Mm,
Like that even the grenade launcher ones won't really work without them.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean that could be it. Um. So, do we want to talk any more about that chapter or move on to the characters section?
Let's go on to characters.
Okay. So, we got Brian. He kind of self-sacrifices. We see him really butting heads with Tattletale as things get more and more dire.
Yeah, he really wants something specific from Tattletale that her powers not really giving her. He wants something like if you punch her in her eye, she'll take triple damage,
Yeah,
which isn't really a thing.
yeah. He wants like a video game solution to this,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "I'm telling you her attack patterns. You got to learn the video game. You can't raise your stats in this game. You get what you get." Um, and then so Lisa, we see over the course of the chapters, her main goal is pretty clearly to get Taylor out of here. Um, like when Alec is hurting and Brian is self-sacrificing, she's like, grab Taylor specifically and go.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think she'd like to save the team as much as possible, but when Gru's like specifically, leave me, I'm staying behind, then she didn't push too hard on that just because I think she knows that she wouldn't be able to tell him otherwise. And arguing over it is a bad decision when there's not much time to argue.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, definitely. Alec, I thought he clearly trusts the team to be like strong enough to drag him out of there when he like knocks himself out from the strain of using his power again after the backfire. And I thought that, oh man, you know what? I totally forgot to run the second animation, so I'll start that now.
Oh, yes, of course. Let's see
Um,
it.
so we'll have that in the background as we talk about this. But I just thought it was pretty interesting that Alec like would do a move like this to leave himself completely incapacitate him. Like it shows that he's just like confident enough that it's like a combination of we're totally fucked or like they'll be able to drag me out of here later. And yeah, just thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it shows a level. I mean, you mentioned self-sacrifice under Gru, that he's willing to take that risk for the team, which is
Right.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then Bakuda, I just wrote Control Freak, and then you had pulled in the portion of the Tattletale line, Narcissistic
Yeah.
Personality Disorder. Yeah, you go on.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'll just read that part then. Megalomania. She spent her whole life being smarter than everyone around her, even before she had powers. I love that part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Tattletale's kind of fun. I mean, her power allows us readers to get a glimpse into like backstories or personalities without having to necessarily go through all of the work of seeing it. I mean, it's still better, of course, to show rather than tell, but we got plenty of show for Bakuda. Tattletale's just giving us a bit of extra context.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I agree. Um, well, I'm not sure there's that much more to say. And then the final version of the art is sideways because Taylor is sideways.
Oh, I see. Cool.
Um, yeah, I think we can move on to the powers, knowledge, and world building. Um, I will mention. Oh yeah, you pulled this. Yeah, you pulled this clip out of it from this chapter. They also did mention the Manton effect in 3.3 when planning the bank robbery.
Yeah, but we got a nice little quote here that encapsulates it from Bakuda, which is, "It's that little rule that keeps pyrokinetics from boiling your blood, that limits most powers from affecting people's bodies. Or depending on what theory you're going by, it's the rule that says your power either works only on organic living things, or it works on everything else." So this isn't like a hard rule, but it's just one of those like common things that powers work by that people have noticed and have sort of codified into a common saying, the Metin effect.
Yeah, hardly any powers really do bypass it. There's Narwhal. There's the anti-Manton effect guy, which is uh, Weld. You can only affect him if your powers affect organic and inorganic stuff, which is
I
a
mean, I think
pretty
there's a fair
cool.
number of people that sort of do that sort of bypass the Metin effect that don't get mentioned, like Clock Blocker, for example. His power definitely bypasses the Manton effect. He can work on organic things, non organic things. He can work on himself. He can work on others.
Yeah, and Vic is right. Rain and Ward works on both.
Yep.
And because Vic is doing the audiobook exclusively, spelled it like Rain, the person who makes the audiobooks, rather than Rain, the stuff that falls from the sky. Which is funny. And Vic said, "I can't draw sideways." Um, but yeah, there are actually a good number of examples, but you got a lot of people like Faultline who can only break inorganic stuff because otherwise she could just chop you in half if you got close enough. Um, Vale says, "I think some powers have no Manton effect consideration." Yeah, that's true. Um, and there's like cases where it's partial, where it's like Tattletales. It's works really well on inorganic and works partially on organic.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Manton things essentially are often determined by whether or not the power would be dangerous if the parahuman use it on themselves.
Yes.
Um, so, I mean, things like Clock Blocker, it's not really dangerous to use it on himself, so he can. Narwhal's the exception to even that, because yeah, you know.
Well, I don't think that Clock Blocker can use his power on himself, but his
Oh
power
right.
can be used on him by someone else copying the power, since there's a number of power duplicating people out there.
Really? Didn't he freeze himself during the bank heist?
He froze himself to the ground by accident by freezing all the bugs. He
No,
can't.
he froze a bunch of bugs, and he also froze himself to stop him from like choking on bugs. I thought.
No.
Maybe I'm
He
wrong.
can freeze his costume, but he can't freeze
Okay.
himself. Vale says the example of fault line is one that has it, but clock blocker is more about he affects the entire thing when he uses his power. His mountain limit is he can't time stop the brain only. For example, clock blocker can freeze his costume. Says 2 plus 4 times 5, and then Vale says little clocky could outright murder if he chose what part to affect. That is his Manton effect. And yeah, Vic says that's why what Taylor did to Clock was so awful. Yeah. Otherwise, he could just like freeze himself over and over again until the bugs were mostly dissipated. But yes, he does actually get frozen in the book by someone else stealing his power. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth mentioning about the Manton effect.
Not at this point, I think.
Okay. Clock blocker no longer has a gag reflex. Level up. Yeah, nailing it. Bakuda, her power, she uses hacker goggles to pick bombs and toe rings to fire them off. I like to think that the goggles can do more commands with her eyes, because I think it's funny when parahumans hack with their eyes.
Yeah, gotta have that HUD.
Exactly. Are you telling me Bakuda's bombs aren't built with currently existing technology? Said Greg, talking about an old Metal Gear meme.
Yeah, but seriously, Tinkers, they're bullshit.
Yeah. Tinker's being able to... Yeah, we had mentioned it here. Yeah, the Tinker scans are really important. I'd taken the readings of Little Vista's powers. Thought maybe I could make a space distortion grenade. Oh, and she did. One of the crazy things is just that, like, she managed to get a scan of one of the heroes so quickly, because she's only been in town for a little while, and we haven't heard of her getting into a conflict yet, so it's like, huh.
Yeah, it's also possible that she like happened to be passively on the sidelines while Vista was doing a patrol or something. Like, it's not necessarily a conflict.
Yeah, you're right. Or, like, could have handed off a scanner to Oni Lee or something and had him track her down or something. Like, there's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, though. Oh, Vale hits us with the classic fucking Tinkers. Regent, do you want to talk about his little section?
Yeah, we get to see him have a power backfire. This is the first time we've seen him really use his power on a big crowd of people. After which he's clearly favoring his arm in pain. And then when he tries to use it again after, we get that quote from Tattletale. It's like throwing a punch with a broken hand. He'll be sore and probably powerless for a little while, but he'll recover.
Yeah. He couldn't just have endless amounts of his power, because the thing is that Regent, most underestimated power in Parahuman.
Yeah, I mean, stunlocking one person's powerful enough. Imagine if you could stunlock an entire crowd.
Yep. Vale says, Bakuda has a friend inside the PRT. Maybe she went as a civilian to visit the PRT HQ. Possible, but I would like to correct that I don't think Bakuda has any friends. Oh, man. Just throwing the burns. You're not exactly friends when you're hostage to a bomb in your head.
Oh, William, come on. You can transcend that. We can be friends regardless.
Exactly. I've changed my mind on this already. Bakuda has hundreds of friends. Thank you, Phil.
We're friends, or else. Yes, exactly.
Go ahead and ask them. Wow. You had put here that Gru has the power of Shadow Clone no Jutsu, and I agree.
Yeah, he's showing off his ability to fool people with a shadow clone, a literal shadow clone in this case, and misdirect them perfectly. It's great.
And then I agree with what you said here. It's a neat application of his Shaker Stranger power because you can't see him clearly in the first place. It's that much easier to get out of the way or to project a feint.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, I want to remind the audience of the audience participation questions so they can get their answers out there while I read any from the audience participation Discord section. But it is, who was the MVP of this fight?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the Discord presently for that. So do we want to just give our answers first, or wait a bit for chat?
Yeah. Do you have an answer prepped?
Yes, yeah. I was sort of struggling between. I think there's a good argument for either Gru or Regent. They both put in some pretty Herculean effort here. Gru, of course, is being his normal self and allowing them essentially to even be able to vaguely escape. Bakuda being able to misdirect her, being able to throw down misdirections where they're going, where they are. I think they would just got hit by a bomb and died much earlier than this if Gru wasn't here. And he pulls a lot of great maneuvers along the way. But, I also have to give it to my boy Regent, who gets them out of the pinch when they were facing down a crowd of the ABB, and then crashes Bakuda's Jeep, which is nearly so close to just being checkmate. Like, if they had capitalized if they had capitalized on it just a little bit better, that would have been the fight win right there.
Yeah. Go with Vic says Regent was the MVP for misusing his powers. Oh yeah, most misused powers. And also stalls really well with Bakuda. Yep. And she dissolves after she dissolves the guy. You're gonna be like,
Right, when he's
and
like, oh,
dissolve.
that's so cool.
Yeah. 2 plus
He's
4
goo
times.
now.
2 plus 4 times 5 says, including Uber and Leet part of the fight, then my answer has got to be Regent because he did everything he could. It's not his fault his allies didn't follow up on him, causing a car crash. Posted in the Discord. Oops. Let's see. So, Vale's answer was, MVP of this fight is Skitter. I know Gru and Regent both had their time, but Skitter ends the fight. I don't think any were really MVP. It was complete team fight, so I'll choose Skitter because she's always the best.
That's fair. Entirely fair.
M says, I don't know if this saves them, but I think Taylor's knife in the... I gotta misread it first. Knife in the food maneuver was pretty solid.
Yum.
Wow, I can't believe that you eat feet. What a weird thing to do. I think that I want to give it to Gru to balance things out. I think that Regent is a close second. But I think there's kind of, in my mind, a pretty big gap from Gru and Regent down to Tattletale and Taylor in this fight.
Yeah, Tattletale and Taylor definitely aren't on their A game this fight. Tattletale because she is forced to be quiet during part of it and doesn't she gives some useful information, but it's not like the immediately actionable stuff that Gru's looking for. And then Taylor just doesn't have bugs.
Yeah.
Needs bugs, definitely.
NBD. I think that's the real quote of this stream forever is just every one of those abbreviations from the bug list. It is interesting that Tattletale is probably least recognizable. She really isn't a huge impact that she normally is. Yeah, and I mean, like, Taylor's normally such a force in a fight. She can solo really dangerous people and stuff. But she kind of just doesn't get a lot done in this fight. I mean, I know she does the knife thing, and that is good, but that's one thing. So
Yeah, she really doesn't contribute to the rest of the fight that much. She like messes with Uber and Leets snitch.
yeah, she just doesn't have her supplies. She's like a tinker with no gear. Only bitch contributed less than Tattletale, and that's because she literally wasn't there. Thank you, 2 plus 4 times 5. M gave a nice frowny face after Vic said, "Yummy, yummy toes." Uh, but yeah, I did not have an audience participation question that I completed for this week. It's going to be for 4.11 and the real 4.x, the Brutus chapter. So
Oh boy.
let us take a
Or I should
moment
say,
to
good boy.
yeah, good boy. Let us take a moment to slow brainstorm as a group while I read Vale's comment. Skitter single-handedly took out 2 of the 3 villains, choked one out, detoured the other. Skitter is 66% of the victories, exaggerating.
Yeah, she's got the KS going on.
Yeah, I mean everybody else's KD looks like shit because they just got the assists only. Who took down Uber? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
No, whatever.
Hmm.
So 4.11 is kind of the kind of post games this arc. I wanna think. That's a good. Um,
We can always think of a question and put it into the Discord later.
yes. Weekly question for noobs: how likely that Taylor and Brian hook up? Yeah, there we go. That's the typical noob question. That we will. That'll be our temp check next week. Is how likely are Taylor and Brian to hook up?
Yes, I want a specific numeric percentage, please. You are being graded.
All right, and also, is Brutus truly the goodest boy? This is kind of a
I
callback
think
to
we
our
already
favorite
know the
doggo.
answer.
4.11 and Vale. So it's 4.11 and just the 4.x that's the Brutus chapter, not the 4.x that's the Caden chapter that I had done the Victoria episode with a few weeks ago. Yeah, so it's just going to be the 2 chapters, but it's going to be a Victoria ep.
That'll be pretty sweet.
And if anyone has any crazy ideas for like an art project or something that we could do, and you have them in the first half of the week, then let us know. Anyway, I'm going to start our outro music. Oh, say.
I'm not certain about an art project, but I am looking forward to some excellent Brutus art.
Ah, yes. Well, as we exit with the music playing, the music used on the end of this episode is once again for this arc Mist Over Pendle by CO.AG Music, which you can find the link in the description of the stream. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. These links and our Discord server link can be found in the description. Thank you, Greg, for being on the episode, and thank you, chat, for being here. I'll make sure. Okay, M says crafts. Vic says we should do our Rachel dog sonas. Oh hell yeah!
Oh boy!
Last time Victoria drew one of those dogs, it was pretty baller. Art of Rachel drawing Brutus. Anyway, bye. You guys are great.
Later.